We are here with a very special guest. Anyone in Ottawa has heard of Claridge Homes, but I don't know if you've heard the story behind it. And we are lucky enough to be with the founder of Claridge Homes, Bill Malhotra. Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
So Bill, I want to talk to you about something. There's a very famous actor named The Rock. Have you heard of The Rock?
No.
Okay, well he's got a production company called $7 Production. And the reason why is because at one point in his life he had $7 in his pocket, and then he made a decision that he wanted to become successful, and he got really focused and driven, and he's built himself a pretty incredible business. But I think you did it with $1 less, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, I started with zero.
$0.
Actually started minus 20. I borrowed money on the way from India to here.
Unbelievable.
Back in 71.
Back in 71. So when you came from India, it was, I think, a lot to do with a family member of yours. Can you sort of describe what it was like and the conversations you were having with your brother about coming over to Canada?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in the final year of my engineering school, I asked my brother if I can get a job as soon as I graduate, and he was able to find me a job in his company called Robert Hall Solar Associates, head office in Toronto and offices in Ottawa.
Okay.
So, was nothing better than that in guy who's 19 years old, $8,000 a year. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna come. I accepted the letter. But then these guys said to me, oh, we got a little mini recession here, so can you wait a year? I said, okay, no problem. So I waited a year. I joined a company in New Delhi, a consulting company, one of the best in the business, Engineering Consultants India. And I guess I learned a lot in that year about designing buildings.
Okay.
So that really helped me when I came here a year later in October of 71.
So when you came over, did you have your sights set on becoming a developer, or were you more interested in at that time of being an architect or engineering? So obviously you were in the design phase and being involved in a lot of the development. But did you ever see yourself becoming Bill Malhotra, the developer?
Never.
No.
Never even dreamt of it.
Really?
Yes. Because how can you possibly
Right.
do that? You just arrive as a 20-year-old guy, 21-year-old guy, and you have a job for $8,000 a year. You don't even know whether you're coming or going. And you come to a place where it's like, I'd never seen snow. November 3rd, it snowed here. And my brother says, okay, here is a shovel. Go clean the double driveway.
And so what was that like coming to Canada and seeing
Terrible.
snow?
Terrible. I almost went back.
Really?
Yeah, because you don't see a human being at 4 o'clock in winter in Ottawa.
And so when you...
And I'm used to getting out of the office, walking into cafes, and cafes are full. You sit with buddies and chat. Here, you're nobody.
Wow. And when did
you haven't seen Ottawa back, obviously you're a kid.
Yes, I haven't.
Okay,
so what was like
go back in the 60s and early 70s, it was a village.
Right.
There was 2 or 3, 4 restaurants of any meaning. There's one, Sorrento's on Elgin Street, where I used to go there and have wine every Sunday. That was a big deal,
Yeah. And when did Ottawa start to feel like home for Bill Malhotra?
Oh, I mean, probably in a couple of years.
Okay.
3 years. Now that wasn't the point.
Right.
The point is when you hit the ground running, it was different.
Yeah. And when you talk about hitting the ground running, I've had the privilege of working with you and your boys at Claridge Homes. You are always going.
Yeah.
Like you are probably one of the hardest.
That's in my nature.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that?
I'm a hands-on guy.
Right.
Like even this is all my creation.
Yes.
What you see here is all my creation, single-handed.
So how do you have such strong self-belief? Where does it come from?
Well, it's not belief. It's a real thing. You work and you produce.
Yeah.
There's no belief. You have a vision and you think you can do it, more so now than I could do, let's say, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
And when you first started out, can you tell us about that first project that you took on when it came to development? Because if I remember correctly, you bought a place that was sorry for my language, a shithole, renovated it.
Right.
And is that sort of how things
what happened? I was at the city. First, okay, let me tell you.
Please.
I arrived here in 71.
Yes.
Okay, on October 11th. It was Thanksgiving. So my brother and my sister-in-law picked me up rather.
Right.
and it was like probably 40 degrees, 45 degrees then. Okay, so a bit cold for me. I haven't seen that kind of cold. Anyway, so next morning, I get up about 7 o'clock, and my brother says, make sure you have a tie. The boss will not appreciate if you don't wear a tie when you walk in the office. You know, he was a South African, very, very nice. He's still alive. He lives in Vancouver. Guy called Tony Eisenegger.
Okay.
He brought me over. What a human being he was. And still he's living, a great human being. In fact, I wrote to his wife the other day. You know, I got some letter from them. Anyway, so I worked there from 71 till 76.
Okay.
And then I was lucky to get a job in the building department of City of Ottawa.
That's right.
There were two guys there, Norm Douglas and Jim Lago. So I worked for them. So I worked there, and I really liked working there in the beginning. But as the time goes, I start getting bored.
Okay.
You know, because it was more routine, there was no real challenge. You know, I got at the point after 7-8 years that I said, I'm not going to stay here till 65. I was only like 30 something. So one day I had a newspaper. This was before, just around Christmas. And I opened, you know, properties for sale. And I saw this property for sale, 6 units on the canal. So I called the guy, I remember it was like 11 o'clock, 10:30. So in the office. So the guy picked up the phone. I said, I want to see your property. He says, okay, what time? I said, I'll meet you there at 12:30. So I went there, looked at it, like rats were running. Everything was bad. But it was location.
Right.
Real estate. So it was very close to the canal. The Robert Street ran into Gilmore. They closed it now. You know, there was a 3-story building with no basement. So I looked at it. They were asking like 120, 130. Anyway, I think I made a deal with them for 96,000, if my memory is correct. And then we said we're going to close in 6 months. So the guy agreed. So I had a friend who used to come and see me, Fernando Pereira. He was a architectural technologist who had his own practice for small places like houses and the Spanish guy. Very, very brilliant guy. And back those days, I'm talking about in early 90s, this guy had computer programs for design and for working out the quantities, costs and all. So, and I'm an engineer at the city, so I had no clue about costs and all that.
Right.
So I basically went to Fernando and I said, Fernando, we go partners here, 50-50. And he said, okay, fine, I like the location. So he started designing it. We liked the design, what he did, fixing it, added 2 units in the basement, which created value. And so everything was going well. He did the construction cost, blah, blah, blah. Just before closing, May 1, about 10 days before, 15 days before, he calls me, Bill, I don't have the money, so you go on your own. I said, holy cow, I mean, certainly, you know, okay, I'll need another $10,000, $20,000. So I had arranged line of credit against my house.
Okay.
That was back in the 90s. I was in that house for 15, 18 years, so the value had gone up a little bit, or doubled actually. So I went to TD Bank and they said, no problem. You know, I didn't have a mortgage on it, so they just put a line of credit of $100-some thousand, and there was my start of my business. So time came, we closed. Actually, what happened, some part of the money, there was another institution, Case Populaire.
Yes.
Santan. They gave me 75%, and I put the 24,000. So that's how I started. And then they gave me money to renovate. They said, okay, let's get an appraisal, see what this building is going to be worth after it's finished.
Right.
And we give you, you know, some money for construction, and then once you rent it at these rents, we'll go and put a new mortgage on it so you can take the money. So that happened. I think it took me 5 months or 6 months.
Okay.
And guess what? During construction, my drywall guy went bust. And I said, okay, I've got a problem. So I knew few guys.
Okay.
Because of my position.
Right.
So I called Giambardino's. I remember that. This is like 50. I think those guys are dead now. And I said, this is the problem. He said, oh, don't worry, Bill. There'll be a guy there tomorrow. They'll fix it within 10 days. They'll clean it out. I paid him whatever he wanted, but he got it done.
Right.
So and I started renting. I put an ad in the paper. It rented in 4 hours.
Wow.
One afternoon. Bang. So
The whole place?
Yeah, whole place. Yeah, 8 of them. You know, like I remember 1 bedroom renting for 6 something, 2 bedrooms for 900. So it was, anyway, it was as per the schedule we gave it to the bank. No problem. In fact, one guy who come in, he says, he was a deputy minister, Rogers, I still remember. He was, I think, with Trudeau, probably. He rented the ground floor. Okay, so I said, oh, this is a high-end building, man.
Yeah.
And I told the bank, they were very happy. So that's how I started.
And so after that first building, did you realize in that moment, okay, I'm onto something here, I really enjoy this?
Well, 100%.
And so did you leave the city soon after, or did you stay for a period of time? Like, how did that transition happen?
I think I stayed there for a while because there was really no conflict.
Okay.
This permit was done by my boss.
Right.
And then I told him that I'm doing this renovation. So he said, no problem. So I did maybe few other buildings, sort of bought a double, severed them, put separate services, flipped them for much bigger value. The guy who bought is still my buddy, so we talk about it even now. And then I did one after another, few of them. And then we ended up saying, okay, now we're going to be building bigger buildings.
When you say we, who do you mean by we?
Like myself,
yourself,
me and my wife.
Your wife.
Talking about
exactly.
it. You know?
Because there was no real we, like you did this on your own.
100%.
I'd love to speak about your wife at some point, but I think you really had a belief and understanding of this and did it yourself. You stepped away and built Claridge on your own. So that time when you finally stepped out
you never build on your own. You always have
a team.
You know, your anchor
right
at home.
Yes.
And get, you know, sort of discussion at night, what you're doing and whether what's her thought, what's your thought, because you're mortgaging your goddamn house.
Right.
You know, it can be a liability, you know, and she has to agree to sign.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they won't give you a mortgage.
Did she always believe in you? And did you always feel like you had her support throughout that process?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Obviously, she believed in me because she thought it's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's incredible because I was lucky enough to be at your 75th birthday party. And first of all, the best party I've ever been to. It's 75 years old. It was the best party I've ever been to. It says a lot. I will talk about the entrance at some point later on. But the amount of people that spoke about the bond that you and your wife have and sort of how much she puts up with, but also how much she supports you. Can you sort of explain to people how impactful it is to have a partner like that?
Without that, you won't be able to. If you're working all the time and you have an unhappy wife, you're not going to produce, and you'll fail in business.
Absolutely,
because the pressure is so much.
And so let's talk about then. Okay, now you've stepped out and you've decided you and your wife are going to go all in on Claridge Homes. I kind of have an idea, but can you sort of discuss how you came up with the name Claridge Homes?
Oh, that's very easy. Okay, one day I was thinking of naming the company. So I thought, okay, what will be a catchy name which will help me sell condos and homes? You know, I used to do some business whereby under Malhotra development.
Okay.
But it was more social housing. The crane used to say Malhotra developments on Kent Street. Many cranes. I did many buildings on Kent Street. But then I said, what will be the catchy one? Because I had in mind that, you know, condo is not enough. You have to be a home builder to do a big play. So for home builder back then, the land values were very high. It was peak. So I had to wait for the right opportunity when I have the money. So what happened after I did 2 condos, one on, it's called Clarence Court.
Yes.
It's on corner of Clarence and Cumberland, 309 Cumberland. And then after that, that finished in 87. I started in 86. Mike Lundy built it for me. He still, his son is a contractor.
Yes.
Around the corner from our old office. And then I built 123 Echo.
Okay.
On the corner of Main.
Very familiar with that.
Main and what's that driveway? They're not driveway, but Echo Drive.
Yes.
Yeah, Main and Echo Drive.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a 5-story luxury boutique building. So I built that. And after that, the condo market died. Like dead. Like today is in Ottawa.
Right.
It's very bad. So I said to myself, boy, what do I do now? And okay, what happened was, meanwhile, I built this big house in Rockcliffe on Mariposa for Neil and Sean to go to school.
Okay.
To Ashbury.
Ashbury, yes.
I spent whatever I had, I spent the goddamn thing. Never expected that it's going to, slow down like that. So it was a little bit of, sort of a rude awakening. So I was lucky. So when this was starting to happen, I got a call from a buddy, because I worked at the city, from a friend, Arun Malhotra. He was a senior planner.
Okay.
So we used to chat all the time. They were interested in my progress. I was the first guy ever from city to leave city and, become a developer, actual developer.
Wow.
So these guys were always, asking me, oh, what's up? What are you next? This and that. So he said to me, he says, Bill, just for your information, I just found out that there is going to be 2,000 social housing units to be built by the city, funded by the Ontario government. So whatever it's worth, take that and run. So I said to myself, what do I do? So I sat down, started looking at, called a few brokers, started looking at different lands, and I started tying up lands. So hoping that if I have good locations, city will come with me.
Right.
So, and then 3 months later or 2 months later, the program came and city was looking for people to do turnkey jobs.
Okay.
City was building themselves too, but they couldn't build because there was, I remember they were called MUPs. 1 bedroom was 92, 2 bedrooms was 106, and city used to build them much higher than those numbers. So they were not happy. So they said, okay, maybe we can go to developers and ask them to build turnkey jobs.
Okay.
So I started working on that and started studying how to make, cheaper units, economical buildings. So we come up with different ideas. So the first one on Cellera, 500 Cellera, I come up with an idea that we can build 100 some units, long building, short 12, 14 stories. And city gave us basically, that first building was more like, you sell us the land and you become the general contractor, you give us a bond that you'll finish the building, and they give us monthly draws, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I did one, and then I got in touch with people, start calling me. There was a guy called Peter Trocha.
Okay.
Peter used to be with the co-ops. A lot of co-ops were under him.
Okay.
So very smart guy. He used to. Then we became friends, and he started, dealing with me because he see I'm building one for the city, and then I did a co-op next door to that on 520 Cellera, I think number. I'm not sure about the number, but it's right adjoining on Cellera, next to the cemetery. So that building went well. The same thing. They'll buy the land. The good part was that I was very lucky to buy the land at a cheaper prices.
Right.
And city had their, on the co-ops had their, ministry had their fixed price that we will pay you only so much. So, which was not low, but was good. So it was good thing. And then I started building them at a cost which I could make, a decent profit.
Right.
Which was working. So then I did another one for CCOC, another one for co-op, Deloge there on 906 Montreal Road. Then I did another building for city on 50 Burnside, overlooking the river. which was a shame that I put a building overlooking the river, but there was no other choice. That's the only land was available. So I built then I did work for CCOC, Central Citizen, they have a organization in downtown or in the Ottawa area where they build their own buildings, but they do get, if the location is good, they'll get a developer to build it.
Okay.
So I built that, I think 191 Parkdale. So there was so many of them we built. And so that gave me some seed money. And then the recession came and big boys were going broke. And I had the cash. So I started buying land and get into the first piece of land. We had difficulty finding one for a few months, but then we got in touch with Schenkman.
Yes.
And there's a guy I deal with now, even a good friend of mine, Steve Creighton.
Okay.
Now he works for Diamond. He's their executive vice president. Him and me and my general manager, Paul Rothwell, Paul connected with Steve and they said, okay, you guys have cash? If you have cash, we'll talk. If you have no cash, we're not talking. So he said, okay, we can close very fast in cash because I had just finished many buildings. So we bought the first piece of land, 60-some acres on Woodruff Avenue.
Wow.
Prime land, draft plan approved, ready to go. You could build within 6 months. So that's how I got into the housing business. And then the recession deepened, and then I started buying land for less than half the price. The going rate sometimes was, I remember, 120 an acre, and I was paying 60. Some places I was paying 30 even. All Ashley went broke, Perez went broke. The banks were selling their mortgages cheap. So I got into that kind of thing. That's how I got into the housing business.
And the name Claridge came when you got into the housing business? Is that how you sort of, because if I remember correctly, is there in London there's a hotel called?
Yeah, this Claridge came from New Delhi.
New Delhi.
I used to, as a kid, if you look at the Forbes magazine,
okay.
I say that in the Forbes.
Okay.
At the bottom.
Yeah.
That name came from, as a kid, my parents used to take me for lunch or dinner to a restaurant, which was situated in a hotel called Claridge.
That's right.
It's very popular even now in New Delhi.
Yes.
It's right next to where Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated.
Wow.
In New Delhi.
And so it does carry a lot of family importance to you as well, because you remember sort of going there with your...
Well, it's a very British name.
Yes.
So as a condo developer and housing developer, that's really why I chose that name.
So I wanted to touch on that because I think you have an incredible eye for branding and marketing. Branding and marketing, you understand that. You don't just have the engineering background. I've had an opportunity to speak with you when you were first coming up with the creative for the developments you have in Florida. You seem to take great pride in coming up with a name and the color schemes and the branding. Is that something that you've always had, that sort of creative eye as well?
Yeah, I have, I'm very blessed that I have, I'm good at math, I'm good at, creating vision, I'm good at branding and stuff like that. Mind you, I'm not an expert in branding and marketing. I use, of course, help of other people.
Yes.
But I, at the end of the day, essentially decide what's what.
Exactly.
I mean, they can give me their recommendation and sometimes they push, but they can't push me.
So can you touch on that? Because you have a mental toughness is a big thing that I think people have to have in business.
Oh, you can't be this size business if you don't mentally tough.
Correct.
Impossible. People will run you over.
And can you touch on that? Because you have a reputation in Ottawa for being a very hard guy to deal with in negotiations. But I think personally, for anyone to get to this, you have to have that level of toughness.
I don't know, hard guy. No, I think I'm a very, very fair guy.
Okay.
And I'm not a pushover. If somebody guy thinks that, oh, he's too smart and he's going to make a fool of me, he's not going to do it. Very simple.
Yeah, and if you always...
And I'm very quick at making decisions.
I can see that.
And I can analyze, especially land.
Yes.
Whether it's Fort Lauderdale or it's Ottawa, in seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is this a gift?
No, it's a gift plus experience.
Experience, yeah. And how long did you feel like you needed to be in the industry to really get to a point where you could make quick, sound decisions like you do today?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Because I worked in the building department, because I was very familiar with zoning, I used to be involved with committee of adjustment decisions and the whole background of building, and knowing the top architects and engineers and everybody. So it was kind of my stay at the city for 10 years.
Right.
Made me understand this business inside out, number one. Number two, like I'm not kind of a guy who somebody can bullshit. Like I can meet a guy in 5 minutes and tell you what this guy is all about.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
our first two questions, I'll know what he answers me. I'll know what this is all about.
So I've actually had a chance to witness this. I've seen Bill interact with someone for the first time, and I can tell right away when he's like, this guy's real and this guy's not. And it's one of those things that keeps you on your toes when you're talking to someone like you, because you move so quickly that I feel like the interactions that you have, you need to make a decision on whether it's worth your time or not. If it's not, you need to move on to the next thing.
Well, you know, a lot of people might think that, you know, I'm too tough or too arrogant, but I'm never tough with anybody, and I'm never ever unfair with anybody in my almost 50 years in business.
Well, it's funny you say that, because at your birthday party, I had an opportunity to hear a lot of people talk about you and sort of the opportunities that you had given them, and the scenarios where they needed your help or maybe you needed them, and you always return the favor. So when it comes to something like that, I want to talk about loyalty, because you seem to have a very loyal heart to the people. You remember the names and when certain people helped you, and you still do business with them. How important is that, the loyalty and sort of those relationships that you've carried?
Well, you know, loyalty is over time. And loyalty is somebody who helps you to grow and, you know, stand on your footings, you know. And people who are dedicated to be a team player with us, that's what this is all about. But, you know, we have some very long relationship, like for example, you know, the concrete, you know, buildings, we use balai for building the structure. You know, here they call it shell. There we call, you know, formwork. And so me and senior Tony Balai, who's dead now, he died at, I think, probably close to 90, probably 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And we go back, you know, probably in the 80s.
Right.
You know, so I would say Balai has done probably 98% work for Claridge.
Wow.
And I've built 70 buildings in my life.
Wow.
So you can imagine how close we are.
Absolutely.
And obviously it is satisfying for them. And I guess I haven't really dealt with Petro Balai for probably last 8-10 years, because Sean take over.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Sean runs the place for construction and sales and after sales and marketing and the whole works. It's under his domain now. So we go back, for example, you know, Fred Gremling, Continental Electric. I go back to him probably to late 80s.
Wow.
You know, and how I ran into Fred, I was at the city trying to get a deal done for the social housing, and Fred was standing outside, and I don't know how I said hi to him, and he said, oh, he says, I said, you are electrical? He says, yeah. I say, you know, I have 2,000 units doing. He says, I think, what do you think per unit should be? He said, Bill, about 3,500. And a day before, I had a meeting with this guy, SNS Electric, who wanted 5,500.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we came down 5 levels, and I said, let's go for coffee. So we had coffee together, and Fred is retired now. His son is there. So I would say 90% of the buildings we have done, Continental Electric has built them.
It's incredible. Well, it's incredible.
I mean, when I looked at that and I said 2,000 units time, that's $4 million.
That's a lot of money.
Back in 1989.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I always, when this guy was telling me, I shouldn't be, I'm on the camera, but anyway, This contractor was telling me 5,500. In my mind, I knew he's trying to,
Right.
put our boots on us. So
Yeah.
anyway, turned out that I ran into him by chance, and 50 years later, we're still working together.
Yeah. So one of
There's many trades like that.
Yeah.
Framing trades.
Right.
Carpet trades. I mean, many trades which are drywall trades.
Yeah.
Although drywall has been changing over time, people come and go. But generally it has been a pretty soft ride.
And it makes a ton of sense because to go at the speed that you go at in terms of development and to get through things like recessions and market downturn or concerns in the market, you have to have a group of people that you can trust so that you can get to the next project. You don't want to be looking behind you and worried about, is this guy going to try and screw me over? You want to know you
I
have
don't
the right
think
people.
in our business that's the issue, that somebody's going to screw anybody.
Okay.
I think it's the key thing in our business, as we all know in any business, is sales.
Right.
Anybody can build it.
Okay.
That's not a big deal.
Right.
Building a building is not you can hire a contractor at 3% and he'll build it for you. Now, I started getting contractors to build, but I found that they were cheating.
Cutting corners type of thing?
No, cheating.
Cheating how?
Means if let's say there's lumber 10,000 feet, they'll show 20,000,
Got it.
hoping that I won't check.
Right.
So they can put the money in their pocket.
Right.
So I've caught guys like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I decided, look, if you want to grow in this business, you better build it yourself. So that's when I brought people. We started building buildings ourselves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you brought everything in-house at that point.
That's right. Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, because you cannot be a major developer anywhere in the world unless you build yourself. But I know in Florida, people use GCs, they pay them 3-4%, but still, the control you have when you build yourself is totally different.
Right.
Totally different.
And you have a pulse on all aspects of your business, especially early on, right? When you were in there
As a
every single
developer
day.
of my size, you
Yeah,
have to have.
Have to.
If you don't know what you're doing, or the numbers don't work, you're going to fail.
Right.
So you have to be you have to be on top of everything.
And
That's my nature also.
I can tell, yeah, and I think you have to have that because one of the things that we touched on coming into this type of series is we really wanted to help people understand to become a billionaire, not everyone can do that. Everyone can dream about it.
Well, billionaire is not it's billionaire, you don't design it.
Right.
Okay? The reason I've become a billionaire is over time.
Yes.
I have had major successes.
Right.
In building houses, buying land, building condos, building assisted living facilities like retirement homes.
Yes.
That has been actually one of the very important feature of my success.
I've heard that. Can you touch on that retirement home? Because it's a business I don't think a lot of people know about, and I don't think people
It's
understand.
a very tough business.
Okay.
And I was very blessed. What happened was, I walk every day. So one day I was walking in Rockcliffe, and I got a call from Quadrant, Eugene Siebert. He was one of their top partners. They sold it now. This must be 2006, around that, 5 maybe. And we were talking about our building, and Eugene said to me at the end, he said, Bill, these little guys are starting to get into building retirement homes. You're a major developer, you got so much land, you can build anything. Why don't you think of it? And I said, boy, that's a very good point. So I went inside and I called Neil. I said, Neil, this is what Eugene told me, and I think let's explore. Can you look in where we can build right now? So Neil called me back in a day or so. He said, Dad, we can do 2-3 of them right now.
Wow.
We have land in the company. So I said, which is the first one? He says, Oak Park. We just built that project, and we have a 2-acre land sitting there doing nothing.
No way.
So let's do it. I said, okay, let's get going. So what happened was, I had heard Rick, he's a developer now, but Rick used to own a retirement home in Bell's Corner. And Rick had a guy working for him. So I called Rick. I said, Rick, I want to see your retirement home. He says, Rick Eiflis. He's a very prominent guy in Ottawa
Yes.
now, big player. Rick said, no problem. I'll send you meet Mike Traub, my manager. And so we went there, me alone, and Mike took me around, everything fine. I liked it. I told Neil, I said, look, I think we should get going. So we said, okay, we're going to hire an architect. So we hired somebody, I forget now who we hired for that purpose, who knew this business. And few weeks later, I got a call from a guy from Remax. I'm just trying to think his name. Very nice guy. I deal with him also. Unfortunately, I'm not remembering his name. He's a tall guy with a beard at Remax. And he said to me, he says, I have a good news. I said, what? He said, I know somebody who really wants to work for you in retirement. I heard you want to get into retirement business. And I said, who can it be? So I asked him, I said, okay, you arrange an interview. So he arranged the interview, and there was Mike Traub.
No way.
Yeah. And the reason Mike wanted to, because he says, I've been with them for a long time, very nice people, but I don't have any place to progress.
Okay.
And so I said, what are you looking for? He says, a small incentive, something small, but so that I feel that it's part of my own.
Right.
I have to work so hard and make it happen. So I said, no problem. So we did our deal. And Mike started. And Mike was one of the experts in the business. So he'll decide, I gave it to him to handle because we were so busy. So he'll come up with the right plans with the architect and start. And we knew the construction business. So we had guys building it. And then he put the team together. So a year later, it's up and running. And I said, Mike, another one? He said, oh yeah, sure. So we said, okay, we're going to build in Kannada, on what's that street? It's South Kannada, past Loblaws there, on Fernbank actually.
Okay.
So we had the land, so we designed it, we built it. And then the next one, meanwhile, what happened was the Y was being closed because they couldn't afford to run it.
Right.
And Neil's mother-in-law, Nancy, she was the chairman or president or whatever.
Oh, no way.
So they asked us if we, put a bid on it or whatever. So we put a bid, they accepted it, we got it, we demolished it, we built the bid. That's the most successful retirement home we have.
Wow, really?
It's 160 some rooms. It's a great location behind Carlingwood, just behind Carlingwood.
But think about how quickly you acted. You heard a good idea.
But by now, Neil has started to play a big role in the company.
So can we talk about that quickly? Because again, at your birthday party, I saw how close your family is, but also how much they mean to you. There's a moment you're on the mic and you're like, Sean, where's Neil? Like, you can see how much pride you take in the family that you have, and your grandchildren sort of walking you out to your birthday party. It's really, I got goosebumps thinking about it, because for me to see somebody who's surrounded by all these people that he loves, but love him, you clearly take such great pride in the family that you have. The 2 kids that you have, they've taken after you. They're in the business now day to day, both taking on huge responsibilities.
Oh yes, because of them, I am where I am today. Because there's no way, as you're growing older, you don't have the energy to be everywhere. So certain part of the business I started farming off to Neil and then to Sean. Sean didn't like it in the beginning because he didn't feel that he had the command or he had but I want to make sure that he understands the business before we let him loose.
Right.
So it took a few years and then he started really liking it. and he's into it now, big time.
Yeah, and they both have very different personalities, but
Different strength.
different strengths and personalities. And I think that that's a great sort of complement to each other. Would you agree that?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And they get along very well.
Yes.
In the beginning, there was a little bit of, overlap, authorities. So they sort of, kind of didn't like that. But
Yeah.
I think they quickly started working together, and they do very well now.
Because that's something I wanted to ask you about, Bill, because
It's very hard.
transitioning to this next generation, you built this yourself, and they always say that the first,
Well, I wouldn't say I built it
Sorry,
myself.
you're-
For last, let's say since '99,
yes,
boys are in there.
Correct.
So I can't say that I built
started
it
it.
myself.
I shouldn't say built it,
Yeah.
started it. So thank you for
So
correcting.
I was basically running this business for about 14 years
Yes.
or so. Now they have a huge platform.
I mean,
to
they
take off.
built it
Yeah.
themselves now to another level,
Well,
right?
now Neil is into different things.
Yes.
We're into storage business
Yes.
big time. We're building 7 hotels. We're doing all kinds of rental buildings, big towers. You see Liberton Flats. We have 5 more coming. We're building on 1040 Somerset at the bridge where that train goes under.
Yes. How important was it for you to transition it to family? Like, was that important to you? Did
It
you
was
always
natural. I mean,
Natural.
what else would? Why would I do anything else?
Yeah.
I mean, here I've got 2 sons, bright sons, and I mean, obviously, if I didn't pursue them, they probably go to New York and go work in Goldman Sachs or some
Right.
goddamn place. I told them, you better to first experience this experience where there's big money compared to Goldman Sachs.
Right. And at some point, Sean actually was part of your first, I guess, experiences in Florida.
Oh, 100%. In 2003, Sean came here for 6 months when he was not married.
So how did you make that decision that you wanted to enter the Florida market? Do you remember
I used
that?
to live here,
Okay.
so I was spending more and more time here in winter.
Yes.
So I was getting bored. So when I look around projects, the market then that time, 2003, was very tight. I tried my best to get a piece of land in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
I couldn't find it. I just couldn't find it. So then I saw one day a piece of land here on where I built Sonata Beach Club. The board was on the ground, and the guy had a one piece, and then there was other 4 or 5 motels. So I at first tied up that corner. I called the guy. I went there myself, and I picked that goddamn sign, and I took a picture, and I went back to my apartment in Hermitage, and I called the guy, and the guy was arrogant SOB. And you couldn't afford my price. And I said, what's your price? Oh, it's $3 million. I said, listen, why don't you come over to my apartment building, Hermitage? When he heard Hermitage, he right away was
He knew.
a little bit softer.
Okay.
So he came and we sat, and he says to me, if you give me this price, then I'll give you time to put together everything else. So I said, okay, done. I said, I need 3 months or 2 months, whatever I told him, to put together all the motels and the land across right on the sand so that nobody builds in front of us. So he agreed. So we did it. And then 6 months later, 5 months later, we closed on all the pieces. And we went for a building permit. We got it. We went to sell. We put a sales center overlook on the ocean there, right on the corner on 801 Briney. We sold most of the building in less than 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah. People lined up to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said something again, or sort of, you got bored. It's funny.
Oh, I
because-
said that earlier at the city.
Yes, but then you said it here as well, where it's sort of like,
I didn't say that.
yeah, well, okay.
Maybe.
But you like the challenge, it seems like. Like, you're always willing to take on a challenge. Would you agree
maybe
to that?
you're thinking when I was trying to buy the first land?
Yes.
I said?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say bored.
Okay.
But I mean, it was a little bit of challenge to find a piece of land.
But do you, when it comes to taking on a new challenge, like when you look at something like Florida, for instance, or you're looking at an old age home and saying like, okay, this is something we haven't done before. I think young entrepreneurs, they're always very scared to
Well,
sort of take
I'm,
that.
I'm going step by step.
Yes.
I'm building one.
Right.
Okay, I'm not building 10 at a time.
Of course.
I'm building one.
Yes.
And before the bank gives me the money, they want to know who you are.
Right.
And who will run this thing.
Yeah.
So I was blessed that Mike Traub would agree to come to me.
Right.
And we started the business.
Yeah.
That's how I started. But, you know, if Mike wasn't there and I told them that I'll run this thing, they might tell me,
No.
sorry,
Right.
you don't have the experience to build it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I built one, started working, then I built the second one, it worked. Now I'm a player. So every bank wants it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now we have, I think, 12th being under construction or 13th,
Wow.
something like that. Sean will tell you.
Neil has really, I think, taken on finding new ventures. It seems like, right? The storage units and things like that.
We are now moved to Belleville. Neil is putting 2 hotels, one Marriott, one Hyatt Studios, new brand.
Yeah.
And then Neil bought, I think, 2 more in St. Thomas,
Wow.
near London.
Okay.
He's putting 2 units there too, and we might put a storage. And then we're looking at putting storage on Richmond and Kirkwood. We own 4 acres there across from the whatever the banknote company is.
Okay. Icon, the Claridge Icon. It is a beautiful building.
You see that there?
I know. We're gonna get. I will make sure to get a shot of it.
It is really icon.
It really is.
It's probably world class.
It is world class, and I think a lot of people, when they drive through, they see that building. It's the highest building in Ottawa.
More than highest, the architectural details are very rich.
Absolutely. And when you came up with that concept for that building, you and the team, how important was that for you to build something so monumental like that in the city?
Well, I guess let's put it like this. That creation is by our architect, you know, Pontrini. He's one of world-class architects. When Pontrini showed me that concept, I said to myself, man, oh man, I'm going to build this building. And a lot of people, including, I shouldn't say, one of the top builders, I'm not naming anybody, said, I don't think Bill can build this building. And I said, give them a message, Bill is going to build the building.
Unbelievable.
And Bill built it, you know.
Have you taken motivation from people doubting you? Is that something that drives you? No.
I don't bother about anybody.
Yeah.
I don't care who's doing what. I only do with my 2 sons in a closed room what we think is right for us. We don't know anybody's weakness, strength, what financial condition they are in. We know what we are. And that's all we focus on. Nobody else. We don't care what somebody does.
I love that.
If it doesn't work out for me, I don't care what people say. I will only do what I think I can make it work.
Is there ever been a moment, Bill, where something did go wrong or you failed at something that you would say also kind of played a pivotal role in shaping you?
Well, I failed. Only time I failed, not because of me or my sons, is when the Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008.
Right.
I lost 22 million on Sonata Beach Club.
Wow.
That's the only time we lost money, big money, because the world collapsed, the whole world. Every builder in Florida went bankrupt.
And how did you respond to that? Like when that happens,
well,
what do you do?
Since we were in Ottawa, we are one of the best years in Ottawa.
Right.
When worst year here, so it didn't shake us.
Right.
We ended up paying everything to Bank of America, whatever we owed them, and we came out fine.
Wow.
We lost some money, that's fine, you know.
So there's nothing you really could have done in that situation?
No, it wasn't outside our control. It's the world. It was a world crisis.
Yes.
Lehman collapsed.
Yeah.
Because the banks started failing, big banks, because you know they're not as tight
Right.
in credit as Canadian banks. In fact, I just read an article 2 hours ago where Trump is saying, "Oh, you're not allowing American banks."
I saw that. Yeah.
To play a role in Canada, and Canadian banks are very strong. They only do this. So he's jealous.
Right.
Even envious. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bill, I wanna ask one more question before I think we have to shut it down.
Sure.
Hopefully you've enjoyed this as much as I have. It's hard to tell with his face. He doesn't smile very often with me. But the next phase for you, you have these beautiful opportunities here in Florida. It seems like you're still coming into the office, still enjoying this. What drives you still today? What is the purpose that kind of gets you out of bed every morning to still continue to be as focused and diligent as you are today?
I'm trying to fulfill my responsibility, what I've taken on. You know, I mean, these buildings are only built once you have pre-sales. If there are no pre-sales, there's no building.
Right.
Simple. That's my rule. You know, like Ottawa, we had a building on 1040 Somerset Street. It stopped selling after 40 sales.
Right.
And the building was 30-story, and we had almost 266 units. We made a decision. Market is gone, which is gone for last 3-4 years in Ottawa.
Yes.
And we replaced that with a rental.
Right.
So I'm not afraid to make decisions. I don't care. I go by what the market conditions are. You give it a shot. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, you protect yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
You make quick decisions. Of course, you have experience.
Comes with time. Comes with experience.
Exactly. You have experience.
Like, you know, when you have 40, 50 years experience, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it comes natural.
Well, Bill, this has been incredible. If you have a little bit of time, let's run over and see